Forward, they cannot stop us now. Only hope to contain us. Let them try and knock us down. Onward, they'll never stop us now. Solely hope to contain us. Let them try and knock us down. This is hallway memory flashback. We watch some sugar coat.
And we're live. Hey everybody, this is Sam from Out of the Armchair Podcast. I'd like to welcome my co-host, Calvin, which you guys have probably heard a lot about, but now we've finally got a chance to sit down and talk to one another for once. So, how you doing tonight, Calvin?
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Been looking forward to this.
Yeah, me too. We've been friends online for a while now and kind of conversating back and forth about a lot of things, politics, religion, the economic system. I mean, I don't think there's very many subjects we haven't touched yet. So
yeah, when I met you, it was like meeting a long lost brother or something. Like it's just fun. We think a lot in the same kind of way. Not always agreeing, but in the same kind of way. And
yeah,
always had good conversations.
Yeah, and I think one common goal we share is the civil discourse, right?
Yeah.
And shredding apart bad ideas and trying to find good ideas and replacing bad ideas with good ideas to kind of improve our way of thinking and maybe take some other people along with us, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that's kind of the reason we decided to do a podcast, because we had so much stuff that we were talking about that it was just like, okay, maybe this could do some good somewhere else. I mean, we were getting a lot of attention online with the group that we have and everything. So, I mean, to me, this could be a really great thing. Yeah.
I'm just so excited. Over the last year or two, I've repeatedly thought about how can we promote civil discourse, and thought about trying to do a podcast or something. Realized right away that I wouldn't want to do it by myself at all. And so I was so excited when you approached me, because when you started laying out your vision, it was like, yeah, I've been thinking about this, like it's necessary and it's good. So I'm so excited.
Yeah. So I think one of the things that we have in common, right, is we watch a lot of the intellectual dark web.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if you don't know about the intellectual dark web, it's not a dark web because it's like satanic or anything like that, right? We're not talking about conspiracy theory web. Well, the intellectual dark web is more about long form discussions. And the reason it's the dark web is because it stays away from mainstream media. Mm-hmm. It's thoughts that aren't constrained by a 3 to 5 minute segment where you can just kind of sit down and have a conversation, really unpack ideas.
Absolutely. I've been a fan of Sam Harris, who's maybe one of the oldest members in the public sphere for years, maybe 8 years, 9 years. And he's been around clearly a lot longer than that. But the intellectual dark web, it's such a cool group because it's a collection of mostly liberal people that have seen the need for a different kind of discourse than television allows, long form, mostly academics, but clearly not all. So guys like Sam Harris, Joe Rogan, Jordan Peterson, Dave Rubin, Brett Weinstein, Eric Weinstein,
Matt Dillahunty,
yeah, absolutely. And then there's just so many figures, kind of on the periphery, and really opening up this idea. I think Joe Rogan pioneered some of it, and Sam Harris some of it, but just the idea that you can sit down and talk for a couple hours, and instead of having this debate like we're used to seeing on Fox or MSNBC, where people are talking over each other, you can actually figure out.
You mean yelling?
Yeah. You can actually figure out, okay, so somebody has a weird idea, maybe it's not even an idea that we agree with. Well, let's understand where they're coming from. And it's useful because sometimes people are like, oh, why would you want to talk about bad ideas? Well, sometimes that's the way to understand your good ideas better.
Right. Well, and if you're able to talk about bad ideas, you can kind of point out their fallacies.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can't do that in 2 seconds.
No, you can't. It's impossible.
You can just call somebody names.
Right. I think one of the things that we've been talking about lately a lot is politics. Right.
We're Americans. It consumes everything.
By the way, I'm so glad the midterms are over.
Oh, goodness.
So I think we both recognize a problem going on in the political spectrum, and I think we both identify as leftists.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
You want to stop and define what you mean by that? Because I think that's a term that everybody misuses, or maybe I stopped you too soon.
no, go ahead.
Well, what does it mean to you? What when somebody says, when you tell somebody you're a liberal, what does that mean?
Well, I never.
Because there's both academic definitions and like why you identify there.
I'd say identify as a Democrat for one, because I guess it's my background in wanting to understand civil liberties and push that narrative to where we have not necessarily an equality of outcome, but an equality of opportunity. Right? And it seems like my own party's starting to get the message backwards now.
Yeah. Now some days I don't know how long I can call myself a Democrat, but I'm certainly no Republican. That's for sure.
Yeah, we'll both agree there. Not that there's anything wrong with being a Democrat, but a Republican. But I guess what I'm saying is, we're starting to see, and I don't really want to speak for the other party. I'd like to maybe do a podcast sometime where we have a right wing, somebody who identifies with the right wing on, so we can kind of talk with them about that. But I kind of want to pay attention to the left and what's going on in our own party, because I think there has to come a point where some of us who recognize a lot of the problems and aggression that's arising on our side need to stop and stand up and kind of say, hey, this isn't what we are necessarily wanting to happen, right? A lot of times when we talk about the left, you hear about the left in the news, it's always these radical movements where it's like we've gotten so lost in identity politics that it's almost like we're beginning to fight with each other, because those categories of identification sometimes overlap in areas that aren't necessarily positive.
Absolutely. Now I do want to back up just half a step here together. Now, I was raised not just Christian, but basically an offshoot of the Mennonites. But dresses. We had electricity, but that was about it. No TV. Blah 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 blah. They're very, very conservative. And when I left in my early 20s, due to basically the confrontation of reason, I couldn't get reasonable questions answered anymore, and it was all authority. When I came out into the political world, because they were a very non-political church, the reason I was attracted to the Democrats is because that's where you could have conversations at the time. At least 10 years ago, people were thinking deeply, and they were open, and they wanted to include people, and especially at the time, I was somewhat of a pacifist. Still have leanings towards that, I suppose, in some ways, and it was during the Bush years, and I didn't identify with big oil, big money, imperialism, not any of that. I identified very much like you were talking about with civil rights, with letting women be people.
Yeah.
It's a shocking idea.
That's a big deal for me. Women's rights. That's
yeah.
I always said, I think Christopher Hitchens probably said it best once. He said something like, give women some control over their own reproduction system. Give them, just as many rights in the corporations, the economic system, and in politics, and you'll start to see poverty fade away.
Oh, absolutely. And the funny thing is, I'm a white guy. I have a big beard.
You don't say.
And occasionally, and especially from the rural background I was raised in, people will take something I say to be misogynistic. Good grief. Controlling women is boring. My favorite thing about women is when they're strong and they're surprising me, when they're being them. I don't want to be in control. So anyway, that was a big deal to me.
Me too. Yeah. I grew up with 3 women in the house. I was the only boy. So
yeah.
I totally get it, And I gotta say, being in a relationship with a strong woman is way more exciting.
Oh, so much more.
And it humbles you as a man, and really makes you reflect on what your position is in the relationship. Where I don't want to get too much into the feminist thing. I kind of want to stick to
Absolutely, no.
But it's
just such an integral part of what it means to be on the left.
Yeah, absolutely.
And such a misunderstood thing. Anyway, yeah, keep moving. Sorry, didn't mean to derail you there. That's its own conversation. But anyway, that's what attracted me to liberalism. Now, shortly after that, I discovered skepticism. Good friend took me from a raw young kid that liked to think and introduced me to how to think rationally and the Enlightenment and logical fallacies and stuff. And that also brought me into liberalism because I began to realize that everything that I liked was based on a long tradition of really rigorous values, of evidence and thinking and not taking authority. Anyway.
Kind of having that rebellious nature, basically.
Yeah, being a bit of a rebel.
Question everything.
Yeah, question everything.
Absolutely. And that's probably something that could be, implemented today, especially when, if you're raising children. My children, we teach them how to think, not what to think. You know what I mean? So we kind of give them that open ray of, being able to explore their own ideas and their own assumptions and trying to, come up with some kind of reality that they can rely on.
So when I first met you, one of the things I really noticed about you, Sam, is that you did question everything. I love that. When did you first notice that about yourself in life?
Ooh, you're going to get us into religion here, aren't you? So
not trying to.
So I'd have to say I was about 9 years old. And I remember I went to church, which we sometimes did as a family.
What kind of church?
It was the Church of Christ.
Oh yeah, good times. Yeah. Very fundamentalist.
Yes.
So Protestant and fundamentalist.
Well, they wanted their women to dress a certain way. Women had a certain role, so it was really.
I didn't realize what a similar church you were raised in.
Yeah.
That's the degrees of separation, not historically, but certainly ideologically.
Well, we didn't have real close ties to the church, anyways. But what we had went to church my entire life. Not every Sunday, but I remember being in Bible school, which I didn't get to attend often because we didn't get up that early at my house. It'd be at like 9 o'clock in the morning. We got there like 10. And I was in Bible. I happened to be in Bible school one day, and they gave me one of those little books that they give you, and it shows like Jesus standing kind of on a cloud and this bright white light behind him. I guess it's supposed to represent God. And it just so happened that same week we had started studying the solar system. So it kind of became a God of the gaps argument for me within myself. It was like, okay, well, I know he's not there because I just learned about cumulus clouds, ozone and the solar system. And at that point, I began to realize that maybe some of the things that these adults are telling me may not be true, and that I shouldn't just accept them because I respected them as adults or whoever they were. And the secondary was, they deliver you this picture of hell,
right,
and what that's supposed to be like, and for people who do the even most mundane actions in life are susceptible to going to hell. So once I got this,
it's terrifying.
It's terrifying, especially as a 9-year-old little boy.
I remember being very worried. I remember being 9 and worrying that I had committed the unpardonable sin.
Yeah, it's just like crap.
Which I know some of you aren't going to get that, and some of you are. And for those that don't get it, you're lucky.
You're lucky. So they kind of illustrated hell to me as a little boy, and then I don't remember exactly what act it was that I witnessed. I think it was my mother do. It may have been like taking the Lord's name in vain, or maybe she went for drinks after work. She was a secretary at the time, so she would kind of do stuff like that every now and then. And I remember that being a sin. I remember what happens to sinners. And suddenly, here I am, this little boy, and I'm picturing my mom burning in hell.
That's a great mental picture.
It was a very scary moment for me. And I thought, I'm already questioning that this has got to be bullshit. I mean, just bullshit. So, and I don't mean to offend anybody that's religious out there. It's just my own take on things. So I mean, that's about the time I began
Mhm.
being
Mhm.
skeptic and completely rebellious.
Mhm.
Probably in the worst ways before I got it down the right way. So, you
Yeah, as a
know,
little goody two shoes as a kid, I mean, I was precocious. I don't even think that. I mean, I was always a thinker, but I was just such a geeky, awkward, weird kid. Um, Coke bottle glasses, starting pretty young and stuff. And it wasn't until my 20s, because I was weird enough that I was actually fascinated with the Bible. Probably read it 20 times, cover to cover. Still enjoy reading it. It's a fascinating book.
it's beautifully written too.
Yeah, especially King James, and my mom actually got me a Geneva Bible for a couple years, which probably screwed up my spelling because it was the original photocopies was the bad spellings and stuff. But beautiful script and beautiful language. Anyway, but it wasn't until my 20s when I began to expect miracles in my life. The power of God to be actually working and solving things.
Sure.
And I noticed that not only was I not noticing that very often, but when there were concrete problems in front of the church, they were impotent to solve them. And they'd sit around council meetings and talking and praying, and nothing was happening. And that started a transition where I was smart enough to notice that, like, something's wrong here. So anyway. Yeah, no, I just think there's an interesting connection between that and liberalism, because that's really what drives our
Okay.
liberalism.
So elaborate on that a little bit. Like,
Okay,
what's your connection there?
okay, so when I think about liberalism, I think about the Enlightenment. That's when the liberalism started. So people talk about classical liberals and so on. So like Rene Descartes and John Locke and people like that. Descartes, who really went on a mission to doubt everything he could. Even his own existence, and finally came down to that he didn't know his body was there, but he knew his mind was there. Yeah, that's it. That I think, therefore I am. What is it? Ergo sum, whatever it is.
Yeah.
Anyway, not to go off on a tangent, but that's the project is to not trust some text, not trust some. And as soon as you get there, you're like, okay, well, why should women be in the home and men be working? I don't know. Where's that written into clouds?
Well, okay, so let me stop you there. I'm going to push back on that just a little bit. Because, I watched that interview with Jordan Peterson, Channel 4. So, and I think one of the things he was getting at in that interview was, if you remember the feminist, you remember what her name is?
Kathy Newman?
Is it Kathy
The
Newman?
Channel 4
Yeah,
BBC?
She's the one writing the
Yeah,
book.
whatever.
Okay.
No, that isn't BBC.
No, it's not BBC.
Are you talking about the recent one or the Kathy Newman one where she stops and finally says, "You got me"?
When the one where he's talking with the feminists and
Oh, this is the recent one. Okay,
Yeah,
this is the recent one. No, that's not Kathy Newman. I don't know who that was.
so and he was they were talking about patriarchal tyranny, basically.
Yeah, right.
Okay, and so basically, what she was pushing back on was she felt like at first she was saying she felt like it was a patriarchal tyranny here in America, and that's our culture. That women are chastised in the workplace and not given the same opportunities as men, which granted.
Yeah, there's some truth in that narrative for sure.
Right, but okay,
A lot of
so
truth.
returning to your point is we have to remember that at one point it was impossible, pretty much. I mean, women were having 10 to 12 children just to make sure 3 or 4 of them survived in certain times.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we're talking a couple hundred years ago, obviously.
Hardly.
I'm a little
120 years ago.
Yeah. Well, and even then, at 120 years, I'm a little embarrassed that it took us this long to get women, raised up on a level more to where men had succeeded to. So, but I think it's important to remember that roles were different back then. Whereas a woman had to have, 7, 8, 9, 10 children, that kept her at home a lot because, there was
just a lack of tampons. It
Right,
gets pointed out from time to time. Like if you don't have that, and it's so simple and it's so ubiquitous, but people forget that widespread availability. I don't know the years, but I want to say the 20s, maybe
Yeah,
Like
20s,
that.
30s, I think it was.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking when you actually think about what life would be like. I mean, it's,
You just have to stay home for a whole week. Is that what that means?
I don't know. I don't want to think about it. You want to think about that?
No. Okay.
Where are we going here?
So let me get back
How
to
did we get here?
So I just kind of want to put this in a
Yeah,
little kind
no.
of package
Keep
real
going.
quick.
I'm sorry. I'm just cracking a joke here.
So like, there wasn't formula available.
Mhm,
There
mhm.
wasn't tampons available.
Mhm,
You know what I
mhm.
mean? There wasn't
Birth control.
birth control, exactly. I mean, again, women didn't have control over their own reproduction rate, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And so I think that had a lot to do with constraining the woman to the home. For one, she had to be there to feed the baby and take care of the baby.
Mhm, mhm.
So being in that role, I mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, feel free to write back. Okay. So they had to fill that role at home already with a baby, so it just made sense that they would continue to uphold the household
Mhm,
while,
mhm.
the male would go out and achieve whatever it was, whether,
Well, and without technology, I think we forget how much technology's liberated women.
yeah, no, that's not
Or has given us the possibility. If you've got 10 people and 5 are men and 5 are women, and the job is to dig a ditch with shovels as efficiently as possible, and you've got some other job that's cooking, cleaning, taking care of kids, it's going to be self-evident that unless you've got some really tiny guys, you're going to need to put the guys on the shovels. That's just not the case anymore.
No, absolutely not.
And when you're living, on half $1 a day and close to starvation, and how fast that ditch gets dug or the garden gets planted or whatever.
Efficiency is
Yeah. I mean, Anyway, there's a narrative out there that I think we both probably have some issues with. That for thousands of years, women were held down by everyday working class men because men hated women. And I just think that's not borne out in classical biographies and stuff. I mean, clearly there's always been misogyny and probably always will be. But
Okay.
I think we have so much to be thankful for with our, anyway.
Well, and I guess what I'm trying to say is that it only made sense back then for that to happen like that. And, maybe that grabbed onto our civilization a little longer than it was supposed to or should have been.
Absolutely.
But
we're still in the Stone Age some ways.
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. I think we both can agree. I mean, I say it all the time. We're all just chimps trying to figure it out.
I love that. Yeah,
that's
we
my
really
life.
are. We really are.
So, and I'm not saying that that's where women belong.
And we're 2 male chimps talking about women's issues.
Yeah.
So whatever we're saying.
Didn't I warn us about this before?
I think you did.
I
think
did.
you did.
I think I stopped the whole conversation.
Yeah. I'm not really sure why we're here because I can see no good coming out.
We
of it.
started off talking about politics and somehow we got here.
Yeah, I don't know
But
how we
okay,
got
so let's wrap this up real quick. So basically, all I'm saying is I believe it took us longer to realize what we were still doing. We were holding on to these archaic ideas
Absolutely.
of how women should be in life and their role in life. And on behalf of men, I apologize for that.
Yeah.
But
On behalf of men,
Yeah.
we suck.
We suck. We
and
apologize.
still do some, quite a bit.
But I guess we got off on a tangent there, didn't we? A little
We
bit?
really did. We really did. we tend to do that a little bit.
Yeah. So let's go. Let's return back to politics.
Mhm.
Okay. Let's get back there. So what is your biggest concern right now?
My biggest concern is free speech. And the reason it's my biggest concern is that I look at civilization as a ship we're sailing. We want to go somewhere. We want to go towards more equality, more freedom, more opportunity for everybody, regardless of who they are. And how do we get there? Well, we don't know. Like you said, we're just chimps trying to figure it out. And so we've got 2 different ways. We can pick out ideologies, whether they're religious or political ideologies, and say, hey, this one looks good, and then just follow the ideology and just steer towards it. Or, and there's a whole history of that failing, both with religion and political ideologies. Or we can say, hey, we're all chimps. Hopefully, if we let the chimp misfits say stupid things, occasionally one of them will say something smart.
Well, because in terms of being on a ship, right? It almost seems like half the passengers are on board are hanging off the edge, pointing in different directions of which we
They
should
are.
sail.
And I guess where I was going with the ship is it's a navigation problem to me. And if we're navigating towards better and away from worse, I don't know how you do it if you don't have any way of correcting the compass, of correcting where you're at.
So
that's why free speech is it's kind of one of my number one values. It's just that without that, we can't make progress. Without free speech, we wouldn't have gay rights. We wouldn't know that Earth circled the sun. We wouldn't know that,
Well, that wasn't necessarily free speech back then, right?
Well, somebody was exercising it whether or not it was free.
Yeah. I mean,
that clearly perils to themselves.
we think about Galileo being put on house arrest for the rest of his life because he peered through a telescope by people who wouldn't peer through his telescope.
Yeah,
I mean,
unbelievable.
Unbelievable. And I think that's kind of where we're at now, though. If you think about it, so it's almost like if you could break it down on the left. I mean, it's fringed out so much that it's almost like everybody's got their own soapbox. Everybody's standing there yelling what their cause is, and it's almost like if we don't move in the direction of one certain cause, and that cause is completely pissed off and creates this aggressive tendency across most of the spectrum. I wouldn't say the whole spectrum, but most of it. And it's kind of like, we can't steer this ship towards these one fringe or this one fringe.
Okay, so explain what you mean by fringed out.
Okay.
I think I'm following you, but I want to make sure we're being clear here.
Okay, so fringed out meaning
you mean different identity groups are all.
There's too many different identity groups that
so we're
all need to be
focusing on what's
respected equally all at the same time.
Us different from each other versus what's making us similar.
Exactly, and that's what the left tends to be focused on, is how they're different and how they stand out. It's according to how they're oppressed, right?
Or disadvantaged in some way.
Disadvantaged in some way. And I don't doubt that there are disadvantages.
I have a few, not very many, but a few. We all know what it's like.
Right, and so, it almost be like if I were to stand up on a soapbox and say something like, I'm oppressed because I'm a young white guy who doesn't make a lot of money. Okay, so if we say young white guy who doesn't make a lot of money, and I make that argument in any way possible I can make it, right? And then if you just take young white guy who can't make any money out and put it with any other ideology, any other identity that you have, right? And you put that in its place. It's equally as unfair, I think, to say we're the most oppressed group and you should pay attention to us. When you try to, it's kind of like when I said the other day, I think I made a Facebook status about it, is you can't take the ideas of one slice of the population and apply it across the broad spectrum of the population, because it will not work. So the ideas that we need to be working towards are something that can encompass the entire society as we know it. And it seems like the left wants us to focus on these little details and it's impossible to do that, because once you do that, you'll start offending every other group on that spectrum.
Absolutely. Now there's, literally like 10 hours worth to unpack there if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
So whatever we have to say about this right now, trust me, we're leaving a lot out, and I think we know that.
Yeah.
So before people start screaming that we left something out, yes, we left a lot out.
Yeah.
No, I pretty much agree. I think every bad idea seems to have some good in it, or some root of good. Now, maybe not everyone, but plenty of them do. And it seems like identity politics is that way. Like noticing that some people have it worse than me. Like, duh. Like some people have it worse than me.
Yeah.
And pretty much however far you go down that spectrum, you can always find somebody that has it better than you and somebody that has it worse than you. And no matter how far up the spectrum, you probably can do that too.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know if I'd rather focus on what makes us similar than what makes us different. Clearly, sometimes empathy requires us to notice differences and talk about them, and that.
But we shouldn't be writing policies over differences, though. necessarily.
Not all of them, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Not all of them, that's for sure.
I mean, let's just be clear here, right? Before anybody tries to tear these arguments apart and really get at us online.
We need your Obama accent.
Right.
Let us be clear here.
Yeah, let us be clear here.
Make no mistake.
So I stand really hard against any oppression of any kind, whether it be racial oppression, sexual oppression, gender oppression. You know what I mean?
Gender identity.
I completely think that, if you want to, whatever it is you want to do, as long as you're not harming somebody else, I'm good with that.
It's totally boring to me to think that I would promote oppressing somebody. Like, why?
Yeah, why would you want to live in that 1984 society where everybody dresses the same, everybody says the same shit? Like,
just why?
Yeah.
Like that's just. Well, why do I care what you do at night?
Right, and I think
In your own home.
Well,
like I probably don't want to know. Like we're two straight guys, and I probably don't want to know.
Yeah.
And it's just totally boring. I don't know. I'm sure some people find it more interesting than me. But anyway.
But they're on Pornhub. So.
Oh dear, are we getting derailed?
This is that. So.
Yeah.
No, but I just want to come back to a point. I feel like we were at a point, 10, 15 years ago, where we're really starting to get our act together. Where we really started to see a decline in like the racist conversations that were going on. And I understand maybe they were still going on, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to get into the systematic racism argument or anything like that. But I feel like, from my point of view, from where I, small town Indiana boy.
And you were raised in the hood. You weren't just raised in just like some homogenous setting, were you?
No.
Maybe I was, but you weren't.
No. No. I was the white dot on the black top.
Yeah.
Probably shouldn't have said that. Don't take it the wrong way. So, my whole thing is...
Everything you say will be taken the wrong way.
Yeah. Ain't that the truth? But...
Everything you say can and will be used against you.
Those who know me personally know my background and know where I come from and know that, I'm previously a hip-hop artist, owned a nonprofit organization, done a lot of work in the community. I mean, it's obvious what I stand for. You go look at my background. So, I stand strong on that. But... it seems like the conversation 10, 15 years ago was nowhere near as heated as it is now.
No,
you could actually sit down with people and discuss opposing ideas.
Absolutely.
And tear them apart.
People were making progress. It seemed like there was real understanding starting to happen.
Yeah, I mean...
Now, maybe it wasn't there, and maybe it was just all underground.
I mean, Jesus Christ, like Dr. Dre signed Eminem.
Yeah.
To me, that was a big social step. I mean, a public social step that I think a lot of people overlooked. And maybe I'm just being biased because my love for hip hop and music, but I really seen
music's pioneered this though.
Yeah,
I mean it's just been a circle of different people contributing different things. I mean that's what makes it beautiful.
Yeah, absolutely.
From all different backgrounds.
We're both musicians, by the way.
I'm a bass player. I don't think that's a musician.
No, you play something. I think I can smoke on a podcast, can I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did I ever tell you about the bass player?
No.
That got so depressed because he couldn't keep a rhythm, he decided he was just going to end it all. So he went to the railroad tracks and he jumped behind a train. That's what most bass players are like.
So, okay.
Anyway. Back on track.
Yeah, back on track. So I guess I think our goal is to figure out what is it that a lot of us that feel the same way we do can do to bring the conversation back to the table, because obviously we've gotten to a point where it's like and let me explain this a little bit, because I think we got into this the other day. We were kind of talking on the phone about how we see there's this defense wall that the left has built and the defense wall that the right has built. That when
I'm glad you put both sides in there, or else somebody's going to jump our shit about it.
No. And it seems like that when somebody on the left looks over to the right and says, "Hey, I have a good idea," that the right automatically has to assume that that person could be a radical leftist. In the same way, the other way around, where the guy on the left the guy on the right stands up and says, "I have a good idea," that it's like you're automatically looking for a negative narrative to anything anybody's saying, to the point that we can't even have the conversations about the real big issues. I had a conversation today on Facebook with a guy. We were talking about the caravan, and for some reason, and I hope I'm not strawmanning him here, but for some reason he seemed to think this caravan coming to the southern borders is the biggest threat to America right now, and I just don't see that. I mean, you see a lot of these claims where they're saying, well, these are armed people and they're going to invade our borders, and it's like, guys, if you think that these people are going to come to our borders where our troops are standing right now and just plow over everything, I have to question what you think the efficacy of our armed forces is, for one. And for two, if you think that's the biggest problem in America, because one of the biggest problems I see is this line that we can't get past, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it, 10, 15 years ago, if we'd had this situation where there's a caravan coming up on the southern border, we likely could have had more of a rational conversation
Mm-hmm.
to come to a general consensus about what the solution would be for that situation. But at this point, we can't have that conversation right now. And so we're completely missing the opportunity to come up with a civil solution.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And here's exactly where you're right. And I'm really going to try to make this not a tangent. Okay. So you talk about the caravan, and I think it's such a great example of what's happening. So there's some number of immigrants that we need to let into the country under some criteria. Like if we know a pedophile comes to the border that's wanted in 10 countries, we don't want to give him like citizenship
Or asylum.
or asylum.
Mm-hmm.
Like it doesn't really matter that he's being persecuted by 10 different countries, police departments trying to lock him up. Like, I think most people kind of would agree on that.
Yeah.
Okay. On the other extreme, on the other end of the spectrum, there's some people we don't want to let in. There's also some people we definitely want in. Like, there's a really smart scientist or something. He wants to come here and he's persecuted, like what happened in the 40s with the Nazis.
Sure.
Yeah, we want to let those people in. They're not only moral, but it's going to benefit us. And there's always going to be some number of people that we need to fill jobs we don't have or whatever. And there's some number of people that if we let that number in, it would erode our society. Like, can we let 1 billion people in next year?
So I guess what you're saying is we need to ask Eric Weinstein to go ahead and lay out the math.
Run the numbers.
Yeah, run the numbers for us.
Here's the other thing: is
know
people will say things like, "Oh, it increases GDP." Well, yeah, I think that's almost totally true, at least at the moderate numbers we know.
Mm-hmm.
But somebody's probably going to be disadvantaged by immigration. So all I'm saying is that when I listen to the left talk right now about the immigration, all they want to tell me is how we have a moral responsibility to let them in. And these people are harmless. They're the nicest, most harmless people. They've never met them. They've never seen them. But they're harmless.
Right. So I guess
there's no evidence.
That kind of rings back to my point.
But when I talk to the right, they want to tell me that this is a group of armed thugs, MS-13. They're carrying rocks and guns. Probably George Soros organized it. Probably with backing from Iran and China and the Vatican and the Bilderberg Group, or who knows?
Russia.
And Russia, yeah, Putin. Any of these claims could be true. I'm just saying that what if we could actually have a conversation where somebody could say, there's some number of people we don't want to get let in without something being like, racist.
Yeah.
like you're like, well, we shouldn't let 1 billion people in. Racist.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, come on.
Yeah.
And on the other end, it's like you have on the right wing, let's let these 10 really smart people in. Stealing my jobs. And it's like, wow, this is productive conversation. And I think that just illustrates what we're trying to get beyond, is that like all these things are nuanced. And like if we can actually like talk about them and talk with smart people and say stupid things.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to say a lot of stupid things.
Yeah.
Then people can, it at least spurs a conversation. Like if you hear me say something stupid, like, wow, that guy's dumb. But at least like it's made you think. Or if I make you angry, I say something that makes you angry. Well, now you're thinking about something. Anyway, right, hopefully that propels us forward.
Yeah. Well,
so that we're not just in this deadlock between two straw man ideas.
Well, and I think that's kind of what each side is doing to each other right
Yeah,
now. They're absolutely creating straw man arguments for each other, and it's just, you know, it's
right
I
are all
can
Nazis
imagine-
and racists, and the left are all snowflakes.
Yeah, and well, and you
libertarians.
can imagine how hard it is for the general person to disseminate which one they should be listening to. I mean, you know, we are in a time where things are starting to look Orwellian
They are.
in terms of information flow and what's real information and what's false information. So we are in, I think, a time where some dire choices need to be made. Some lines need to be drawn in some sort of fashion. So as we make sure that our society doesn't follow down that path where, you know, and I'm not going to use the big.
No, we were talking to a friend earlier today on something you were talking about. Not gonna name the person. Somebody I have deep respect for. Very, very smart woman. And she pointed out that I criticize the left a lot. And we've been doing that a lot here.
Yeah.
Why aren't we criticizing Trump? I mean, the guy is like.
I just don't think he's that powerful.
but dude, he's the second coming of Hitler.
Yeah. Okay.
But no, really. I mean, this is a guy that has credible rape accusations against him. He's a guy that
don't get me wrong.
is a complete sleazebag on the business end of things. Like, I find myself sometimes almost defensive because I hear so much stuff about him that's just irrational. Where he'd literally have to be a god and a psychopath all at the same time in order to be these things.
Well, there's some people out there who would describe him in just those terms.
Yeah. And if you think that, then
Not
go on.
Not much to be said for you.
Yeah. I don't have much to say that's going to help. But if he's not a god and a psychopath, then he's actually human. And I'm not saying that he couldn't be a psychopath. I'm saying both at once.
Right.
Like, what are we?
Just gonna make a little drink here.
What are we? I don't know. I kind of lost my train of thought. There was the god and the psychopath thing.
How much power is the left willing to give Trump?
Yeah,
That's kind of my question.
and I guess what I think of where I was going is that we could spend the rest of the podcast criticizing Trump.
Right.
And
It's really easy to do. Thanks for making it easy for us, Trump.
yeah, and it's easy, and there's good jokes to be made, and yet if you really think, okay, let's go back to liberalism here. So one of the key ideas in liberalism is that people aren't innately evil. Like, everybody wants good things, or at least everybody but the 10 psychopaths and pedophiles.
Yeah, who was it that said any rational thinking person wants the same for another individual as they want for themselves? Remember who that was?
Is that Kant?
No.
No. Was it? I'm gonna.
I think it was David Hume.
Yeah.
think
Yep.
it was
David Hume.
Yep.
Love David Hume. Yep. I believe you're right. Fact check us on that.
Yeah, let us know if we're wrong. We'll concede.
But no, I mean, this is the basic idea: is that in religion you've always got this good and evil fight, and as soon as people are like, well, who stands up and says I'm evil? I'm for bad stuff. Like I don't meet many people that are like, yeah, man, I'm evil.
Yeah. Hey, man, I'm a racist bastard.
Yeah,
Just
I mean,
so you know.
there definitely are 5 people here and there that put people in refrigerators and eat them and stuff. But I don't meet very many of them.
Right.
If you really believe that a third to half of your fellow citizens are basically that, then you're back in a worldview where it's full of demons and devils and evil and like practically a religious worldview. I mean, you're completely outside of the realm of liberal rational thought.
Well, and then how do you operate? You know what I mean? I mean, if you think 1/3 of the population is just complete evil and irrational people.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I'm going here, is that we can and should and will at times criticize Trump. I loved Obama. I criticized him deeply. His drone program, for example, was terrible.
Yeah.
Absolutely terrible. And people didn't check into what he was doing with the NSA much and stuff. Fast and
We won't
Furious.
even get into Bacardi.
Yeah, whatever. Like there was anything there, but anyway, But I don't want people to think that we're just, here to criticize the left, because you criticize who you love, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and that was
Who
my
you think
point,
you can fix.
right? Was to say, well, look, we're leftists.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So I think that it'd be like, just a minute ago when we pointed out we're 2 men sitting around talking about feminist values or whatever, right? Like,
And doing a terrible job.
yeah, that's probably very wrong.
Doing a really bad job of it.
Forgive us, we're new at this. But I think it's kind of the same thing. That's kind of what I was saying earlier about, if we had somebody from the right here that could sit and talk with us, which I do believe I have a couple guests lined up that are willing to come and talk to us, actual politicians.
Oh, that would be fun.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. And it's going to be a civil...
I can't wait.
Yeah, it'll be a civil conversation. I think it'll be really great. You know what I mean?
There's nothing more fun than listening to the smart version of an idea you disagree with.
Absolutely, absolutely. And so, and that's kind of why I'm concentrating on the left, because I kind of feel like because as leftists, it's our responsibility to say, hey, this is wrong. Like we get, like you want equality. You know what I mean? To be who you want to be, you should have equality of opportunity. But that doesn't come out to equality of outcome, right?
So explain what you mean by equality of opportunity and equality of outcome.
Well,
how would I know when I had equality of opportunity?
Well, equality of opportunity, say, women should have the same rights to the same jobs that we have.
But what about me? How do I know I have equality of opportunity to everybody else?
Well, that's hard to say as a white guy, because there's a whole white privilege conversation we could have. So, I mean, I in a general sense.
But I just meant like a generic human. Like, how would a generic human know that they were living in a society with?
Well, I think you are kind of living in that society.
In a way, yeah. In a way.
One of the things that
although
would say,
economically, maybe not so much. Like the neighborhood you grew up in and the neighborhood I grew up in, like nobody went to Harvard.
Right.
And there's other zip codes people do. Lots of people do.
Well, and there's nothing to say that because culture rings itself out that way, that's the way you have to be.
Right.
So one of the things that I came across, I think one of the great sayings I wrote, and a couple of, at least one of my essays in college was, freedom isn't the tenacity of the seeker. Now understand that you may have heavier chains here or there, or you may carry a heavier ball, or something, something is slowing you down in other ways that probably aren't slowing down other people. Right, and maybe your load is a little heavier.
And some of these are social constructs, and some of these might just be my own anxiety, my own mental health, my own physical health,
or even a false perception of the world.
I'm shorter and not as good looking as somebody else, or whatever it is.
Right. But if freedom is in the tenacity of the seeker, it's up to you to recognize what your shortcomings are and try to overcome those hurdles. And that's a perfect world sense, right? I'm not saying that's exactly how things are.
And some people just, because of luck, some people just truly have it worse than I do. I mean, like, many, many, many times.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look at, women in the Islamic State.
Well, even here, but yeah.
Yeah, even here. But I mean, you think you got it bad, Muslim women can't even wear pants without going to jail or getting beat in the street. So, I mean, and that's that's probably a whole nother issue we could get into, is how we tend to look at things in such a narrow point of view that we don't realize the real atrocity we could be living in, right? And some people are probably paranoid they were headed that way. I just don't think we're there yet, to be a completely oppressed state. I mean, but I guess where I'm going with that is equality of opportunity versus equality of outcome. Okay. Equality of outcome is basically like socialism, where you spread the wealth, everybody comes out even, regardless of how much you do in the system, and that just doesn't work.
How do we know?
Historically, Venezuela.
No, I completely agree.
Yeah.
Like I heard the other day, somebody was saying, glasses are steaming up. Must be these. But anyway, that how many times do we need to run the experiment and get done with it and say, well, that wasn't true socialism?
Yeah.
I mean, it's been done how many places? And all the time I hear people, rah rah for, and of course there's different versions of socialism, and that's once again, another 10-hour conversation.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, if you're trying to say, okay, so there's 13% of this group in the US, therefore at this workplace we need 13% of this. And the next workplace we need 13%. Like that, I mean, it just so happens that people sometimes do sort themselves because of their interests or other things. Like we're not going to expect a demographically accurate representation of wheelchair-bound people on a welding line in a factory.
Sure. Limitations exist.
Yeah, or interest.
Mm-hmm.
But should people be blocked if they can do a job? Absolutely not.
Right.
Why would you want to do that?
Right. And those, particularly, those stories tend to give inspiration to other people.
Mm-hmm.
You see people who do have limitations that overcome those limitations.
Who's the scientist that has the quote about?
Well, so you just fed into what I was saying,
Mm-hmm.
though, about equality of opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that you shouldn't have the opportunity. It's that you should
want
just
the opportunity
get
for
it because you
everyone.
want it. You know what I mean?
Okay.
That's
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's a
Mm-hmm.
welfare state.
Mm-hmm.
If you ask me, like, it's kind of like I don't want to piss off any fast food workers. But it's like saying because you work at McDonald's and you have a job that you should make, $25 an hour, the same rate that an average RV worker makes. You know what I mean? And that's just it's not feasible to me. Like, you don't deserve that.
Well, here's why. If all of a sudden somebody could make $25 an hour making Big Macs, I'd quit my job and start making Big Macs. The hours would be easier. The job would be easier. Like, how many people would quit their job? I mean, I always think about this, the easy ones in terms of hospitals. Why does the doctor make more than the janitor? The doctor can be a janitor. Every doctor can push a broom. But most janitors can't be doctors. Just abilities.
Mm-hmm.
Now there's some janitors that could be doctors. That's for damn sure.
Sure.
But the Venn diagram, every doctor can be a janitor, and not every janitor can be a doctor. Anytime you see that,
Well, and that's it too, right?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's why equality of outcome cannot happen.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it'll completely break the system that we live in.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I think that's where some of the left gets it wrong at, is, and I'm not saying everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it almost seems like everybody wants equality of outcome in every situation, and the world just does not.
Everybody being everybody on the far left.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
So we
just
should-
because I'm not talking about the far right, because there's not an equal conversation I have here.
Yeah. And being that we're not part of the right, we're not part of that conversation.
Exactly.
Much. Like the conversation that I am adjacent to spans from the extreme left end of right of center, very, very liberal Republicans, to literally people that are cheering on Antifa on the left. And I know some of these people, and it's crazy to me, but yeah, I just was part of a conversation today where some people were cheering on the historical death of some cop in some light post incident because they hate cops because anarchism or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Like, y'all are doing love wrong and equality wrong and inclusion wrong.
Okay, so
Yeah, cops got hurt. Yay,
Yeah.
I'm a humanist. Cops get hurt. It's like,
Yeah.
too.
you're not the humanist, man.
Yeah.
So I guess, and when I see things like what went on with Tucker, right?
Yeah. So explain what happened to him.
I mean, he got
Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
So he's on Fox, which is definitely not centrist,
Yeah, definitely not.
but he's not Sean Hannity. He's
Well-
quite a bit towards the left compared to that.
Here's the thing: is I don't give a shit whether he represents the left or the right. You know what I'm
Right.
saying?
Actually, you're damn right. It doesn't matter.
Right.
What
you
he's saying.
You should not invade that man's home.
Okay, so what happened is that the story is that his wife is at home alone. He's preparing for his show.
Mhm.
He's away from home. His wife is making dinner and getting ready to go to a party. And she hears beating on the door, and a guy starts trying to crash through the front door, and the front door cracks. So she runs to the closet thinking she's got a home invasion. Calls 911. Turns out there's 20 members of an Antifa cell. And they start chanting and stuff.
This is where we separate Antifa.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Going to somebody's home isn't fighting fascism.
No.
It's being an asshole. Can we cuss?
Yeah. I think I've done it 4 or 5
being a
times.
jerk. Yeah, I think I probably have too. But
By the way, don't let your children listen to this.
yeah. Who knows what we'll start talking about?
Yeah.
Clearly, we don't even know.
Yeah.
But like this is. I suppose there's some point when political violence is a thing. I don't really want to get into that because I'm not sure I know when and where. But like, do these people think they're going to win if there's a revolution? Anyway, yeah. So 20 people are there. As soon as the cops come, they scatter like roaches. Of course, they're live streaming themselves because they're so proud of themselves terrorizing a woman. Yay, liberalism! Let's put a woman in a closet, scared.
And it's like, well, and I guess,
This is how we fight the patriarchy. We put women in closets as men try to invade their home.
Yeah. And
Yay, tearing down the patriarchy by terrorizing women and children.
I'm sure there's thousands of people out there that could rationalize that action, but I just can't.
And they are.
Yeah, they definitely are. And I just don't see where, excuse me, I don't see how this could be productive at all.
Yeah, I really don't get it.
Because what you're asking for ultimately is peace. I'm guessing the ultimate goal for the far left is to find peace and acceptance for whatever identity it is that they hold to be their personal view.
Right. So actually, this Tucker thing's super interesting. So why did they show up? They showed up because Tucker said things they don't like. You go, whoa, we're going to violently confront somebody. Like they were telling him that we know where you sleep at night. That was their chant. Something to Carlson, blah blah blah. We know where you sleep at night, or I don't remember what it was. And are threatening his wife and trying to give out his address and on and on and on. Okay, because he said stuff. But if you listened to what the Post were saying, they're saying that his words kill tens of thousands of people a year. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never seen words to kill people.
Yeah.
Not unless it's the general ordering a strike. Like if you're not giving the order to launch nukes, you ain't killing people.
Well, and I don't know the complete details of the Tucker situation.
No, and I don't either.
I'll concede there, but I still don't.
We're not reporters. We're talking.
Right, and I just don't think that that's the right way to approach. So if you find somebody with a bad idea, and this is kind of what we stand on, if you find somebody with a bad idea, then you confront them on that platform. Okay.
So how do you counter a bad idea? Because
just like this.
Right. So the solution to speech you don't like is more speech?
Yeah, absolutely. Because what happens is when you suppress that speech, those bad ideas can't be laid out on the table, and they can't be scrutinized for everybody, to go over and say, well, this is why this is bad. You literally cannot change somebody's idea if you can't talk with them about it.
Right.
You completely deny that revelation from ever happening for a person, for one. And two, you're doing yourself harm. So, and that's kind of the big problem is when I start to see intellectuals being deplatformed in universities because of leftists. Brett Weinstein is a great example with his situation.
And read up on it, folks. We don't have enough time to tell the story because it's a long one.
Yeah, and it's not my story to tell, so I'm not going to tell.
And I get the details wrong because it was kind of a confusing situation. But
it was a confusing
needless
situation.
to say, a guy that literally got hounded out of his college for calling out his fraternity that he was joining for using black women sexually assaulting him or something. I don't know, at a party.
No. So that was a different situation.
Yeah, I know, but that's his background. This is a guy that literally fights racism.
Yeah.
Gets hounded out of the university.
Yeah. So
on trumped up charges because people were claiming he was racist because.
So we got into this details a little bit. So let me kind of unpack that story a little bit. So what happened is when Brett Weinstein, or Brett Weinstein was in college. He was looking to join a fraternity at some point.
That's right. Yeah, he hadn't even joined. Yeah.
So he went and he was, went to a frat party or whatever, and somebody got the bright idea to order hookers.
Strippers or hookers or something, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And I guess the party was predominantly white males.
I think it was like a Jewish frat or something like that.
Right, and then so they ordered, I think it was specifically black hookers. I could be wrong about that.
Yeah, and we're making them basically perform sex acts and blah, blah, blah.
And
he was
racial
uncomfortable.
situations.
Yeah. He was uncomfortable, left the party, and then called it out to the administration, who then
right, and then years
looked
later,
into it and literally got death threats and more or less had to change universities. Years later, after his PhD, he goes to a university and keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, so years later, he ends up at Evergreen College, and there was some kind of, and I'm not sure about the details of this because this is where it gets kind of confusing for me because there was something about.
So there's a play that's something about, and I would love to see the play. I haven't, but it's something about the playwright envisions a town where all the black people disappear through, I don't remember what it was, magic or something for a day, and the town grinds to a halt. Because any town, you take 15-20% of the population out, and town comes to a grinding halt.
Yeah.
And the point of the play was, we need everybody.
Right.
Which is great. So Evergreen then had this tradition that every year, the black staff would kind of enact this on campus, from janitors to professors. They would just stay home for the day.
But this time it was white people were
they were trying to organize it that, no, we're going to make white people stay home instead. Right. So the black community was voluntarily doing this as a way of showing their significance, which is beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yeah, I agree.
And instead, what got inverted is instead of a voluntary day of absence, it was a
forced day of absence.
Yeah, not with administrative pressure, but with
absolutely with administrative
pressure.
Well,
yeah, it turned out to be, yes.
Yeah, because the administration ended up taking sides with.
But anyway, when Brett was like, whoa, there's a difference here.
You're talking about 30, 50 students who didn't know Brett.
Didn't know him.
Never met him. Right, never came to they weren't a part of his class.
We're told that he was a racist and came up and we're shouting at him. And when he starts talking to him, he's like, it was clear that plenty of them were like,
they wouldn't let him speak.
Well, yeah, but the first time he did engage some of them, and I remember him talking about that, like, it was clear that some of them were so confused because they started talking and he was agreeing with a lot of their concerns. Mm-hmm. And they're like, wait, this doesn't sound like the racist we were told about.
Yeah. I think they referred to them as like the foot soldiers of that group or whatever. They didn't even know why they were there. They were just told to show up. They were like the cronies or whatever. And so they showed up and protested him. And then in the end found out that he really wasn't that guy and was kind of conversating with him and felt bad for it. But they literally came in the middle of his class. Very, very brilliant man, very respected professor. I mean, him and his wife are the most respected.
I love listening to her.
Yeah, she's awesome.
Just amazing.
But some of the most respected professors on this campus, and these students came in and interrupted his class for reasons that they had no evidence whatsoever of.
And make a very long story short, they were forced to resign over time.
Yeah, both of them.
And then wound up winning a lawsuit because it became clear as soon as they went to court that this was completely an illegitimate.
And this happened in a territory where these kind of talks are supposed to be facilitated. I mean, the university,
an educational facility.
Yeah, this is where even the bad talks happen. So we can.
Well, supposed to be.
Yeah. Not so much anymore.
We should be able to talk about anything. Yeah, and this is our concern. Okay, so when we take away the ability to discuss ideas. Yeah, when we take away the ability to discuss ideas, bad ideas fester like an infection. And the only way to clean an infection is to open it up and talk about it. Not talk about it, but
investigate it.
Investigate it. Let the pus out. And people often are like, oh my goodness, this person I don't like is on campus and it stinks and the pus, and well, it's not going to go away if you trap it inside.
Right.
It's going to grow. Like the only way to heal it is to let it out.
Yeah, and let people see that
I
that
heard
these are bad ideas.
an interview between a number of guys a while back with a well-known character that truly has bad ideas, truly has really bad ideas, and he was trying to sound smart, and the guys he was talking to were just some other YouTubers, nobody overly brilliant, and it was just absolutely hilarious listening to them just destroy him. And the guy became conscious of it really quickly and was pushing back, and pretty soon just looked like a victim, and it was free speech working. Like, this guy looked like an idiot, and you're like, good God, the only guy that would listen to this guy would be somebody like really mentally ill. Like,
yeah, because I mean, if you have a bad idea,
and if you're that screwed up, you're probably gonna like seek out these bad ideas if they don't have a platform.
Yeah.
Unless you can literally run them off the planet.
Well, and think about that. If you can't put somebody on with bad ideas, okay, on a platform where you have a general judgment going on, and it's not a pocket of people who have a special interest in what they're saying, right? So you're no longer, what you're doing basically, essentially, is taking away that person's general audience, who they speak to on a regular basis. If you put them on a platform where there's an open discussion going on, then it's easy for people to say, okay, look at this guy. He's a friggin' bigot. You know what I mean? Or he's a sexual predator. He's a moron. These are bad ideas. But you can't do that if you leave them in their own echo chamber. Right?
You remember a while back, I was reminded of this for some reason in some newscast or something earlier this week, that there was a group on the internet a couple years ago that was trying to, not connected with, obviously, but they were trying to pretend to be connected with the gay rights community and blah, 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 and jump on the bandwagon, but they were advocating for pedophilia.
Yeah, we just recently talked about this.
North American Man-Boy Association or something like this. Okay, nobody deplatformed them. Now, I don't know that people were inviting them to talk at universities.
Well, they had that TEDx.
Did they?
Yeah, there was a TED, and not to be confused with TED Talks.
Okay.
But there was a TEDx where there was
one of them talked.
Yeah, he came on talking about how, and basically his argument was, we need to,
Long story short, they became completely discredited by being out in the open.
Right. Perfect.
Because it was such a demonstrably bad idea. Like, there's just such a difference between consensual relationships between adults and relationships with kids that can't possibly consent.
Right.
And no civil rights in the world get you there because you're taking away rights from kids.
Well, okay, so
if two adults are having any kind of relationship, doesn't matter what they identify with and what combination of what parts, doesn't matter.
We agree they're responsible adults.
Yeah, they're not taking rights from each other.
Right.
But and that becomes so obvious talking to these people, it really made it clear, oh, this is why we don't allow this in our culture.
Well, and
it's an idea of an idea that's deeply offensive.
So the guy's argument was, I guess I can't say it was his argument, but I got the tail end of this because I was kind of paying attention for obvious reasons. But his argument was that if we were to destigmatize pedophilia, that these people would be more likely to come out front and deal with their issues, in a mental illness facility or seek some kind of counseling to get over these type of feelings. And it just, I was kind of offended by that because, the whole opioid situation, where I advocated for quite a few years, that we need to destigmatize, we need to.
Yeah, stigma is bad for a lot of things.
Right, but but for them to piggyback that idea.
Yeah, and and that's my point, and I don't want to get off on the conversation about the details of this because I'm not really sure it's that interesting of a thing.
Yeah.
But my interest in bringing it up was it's an offensive idea, deeply offensive idea. It's a bad idea. It's an idea that triggers people if they've been abused. And yet, I don't know how long they were out there. A couple of
And
years.
it quite possibly triggers people who have those tendencies, those pedophilic tendencies, right?
Yeah, exactly. And you could make a fine argument for somebody that's got those tendencies, listening to them and going, I'm not so bad. Maybe I can do that.
Yeah.
So once again, this is, to me, one of these test cases of an idea that is just so far over the pale, and yet they became discredited within a number, very short number of years, a couple of years. And I'm not saying that the group's not on the internet anymore. They may be, but they were certainly not out advocating the way they were.
It was so far over the pale that I kind of wondered sometimes if this was a setup to kind of say,
like a parody or something.
Yeah, like
or trying to discredit like the gay rights movement or something.
Yeah, like we'll discredit that, or even say, even and okay.
But it was like an example of free speech working.
We're a little bit of conspiracy theorists in all of us, right? So.
What are you drinking, Sam?
One of them. Bacardi. But they ain't paying me for it. One of the things was I maybe forget what I was gonna say. Oh,
conspiracy theory.
Yeah, conspiracy. So one of the things is it the right setting this up, saying, look how ridiculous the left is looking right now. Is they're willing to have this conversation. But what I would say is, if you had 2 glasses of water in front of you, and one of them was poisoned and one of them wasn't, wouldn't you want to know which one was poisoned before you drank it?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And that's what we can do when we present bad ideas with good ideas and put them on this platform where they can be discussed by all in a public forum. You know what I mean? So we can say, no, this is the poison water, and we don't want to fucking drink that.
Here's another thing that I think about anytime free speech comes up. So I hear this line of argument all the damn time, where people are like, oh, well, if people hear a bad idea, they'll adopt it. And, okay, so one version of this, one sense of it is right. Somebody might adopt it. That's true. Okay. But I don't understand how arrogant it is. Okay, first of all, who gave you the right to say which ideas are good and bad? So presumably, I need a PhD to decide what ideas are good or bad?
Yeah, but
I don't know.
And that only
Be a
is
politician?
relative to your PhD.
But some of the people doing this are clearly movie stars. Like what qualifies me to say what ideas other people can have? Okay, so that's the first problem. The second problem is, okay, say that we did know what ideas were bad. Say there was an idea like white supremacy that we could all agree was bad.
Right.
How in the world do we really think that the population is so stupid that something really dumb, like let's use the pedophilia one because it's so much less charged. Mm-hmm. Do we really think that most of the population is going to be like, dude, I got woke. I totally think pedophilia is okay, man.
I freaking love that statement. I'm woke, man.
Yeah, but I mean, how dumb would you have to be? And that's the point.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody quickly agrees that, like, yeah, that's a bad idea. And when you have more complex ideas, like, say, white supremacy, where there's negative history, well, maybe we shouldn't let people talk without rebuttal. Mm-hmm. Or maybe if somebody is talking, maybe we should organize a rebuttal.
Well, yeah, I think that's kind of what Q&As are for in those situations.
Well, yeah. Or even, a talk across campus or a series of talks, a series of lectures on, why some of these ideas are bad.
Just scrutinizing the ideas.
Yeah, scrutiny. The idea that if there's an idea that you can't talk about, pretty soon it's like, what are they hiding?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's something there and they don't want us to know it. And that's just the way our brains work. And I really think that we set people up for, especially people that are a little dumb and a little bit more on the conspiracy theory end, where they're like, boy, I can't question the Holocaust. Maybe it is just a big plan.
Yeah.
So what's in it for the people pushing this? Whereas like it's a clearly real. But when you don't allow people to talk about it, like we do allow people to talk about it here in the U.S., and we don't have near the Holocaust denying that happened in Poland, for example.
Yeah.
Where it's been illegal for decades.
I'll never understand stuff like that. Like where we can't, in societies where you're not even allowed to talk about certain things.
Well, we have plenty of those.
Well, plenty, yeah. And we won't get into that tonight, but.
And that's kind of our point. So, I'm sure I've said some stupid things tonight, and I'll keep saying stupid things.
Yeah.
Because here's the point, people. We can have two kinds of conversations. Well, we can not have a conversation. We can have a conversation where we regurgitate like a bunch of religious zombies, the same things that everybody else wants to regurgitate. It's not interesting, it's not helpful. We don't learn anything. Or we can be courageous enough, if that's the term, it sounds kind of conceited, but to put ourselves out there and make mistakes.
Right. Well,
because I'm just a chimp. I'm going to say some really dumb shit.
Dumb shit. Yeah.
And probably already did tonight.
And that's kind of the point of the podcast, right? Is because, we are going to say stupid shit sometimes. That's just, that's our primitive brains at work. Like, I don't claim to
Or
understand
even when we say something smart, say it the wrong way.
Yeah. Well, and I don't claim to know every aspect of every argument. So, and that's kind of the point, is, okay, if you have a different perspective of this argument that you think could help me define your position, or any given position, fine, bring it. Let me know, because my whole point is scrutinizing ideas, and if I have a bad idea, I want to get rid of that idea and put another good idea in its place, right? Because ultimately we're looking to be better thinkers and be able to approach things in a more rational perception, right? We want to be able to know about things that we don't know about, and obviously in our little corner of the world, there's going to be things that we don't know about in certain parts of culture that we don't understand. So, help make us smarter about things if you think we're saying stupid shit.
Which we are.
Yeah. We absolutely want these ideas scrutinized, and we want to be able to understand your position. And
here's the other thing.
But know but know that we're on the side of peace and civility.
Right.
That there's not.
Thank you.
Yeah.
You're going exactly where I was thinking here.
Yeah. There's.
And how can people engage to teach us? Like, I guess I kind of want to say, if your response to something I say is you hate women, I don't.
Right.
Like, sorry, bro. Like, have I made mistakes in my life with women? Hell yeah. So is pretty much anybody else.
And that's probably half the reason why we respect them so much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No kidding. If your response is racist.
Yeah.
Like, dude, like, I suppose we all have some racism inside of us, subconscious. Maybe we do, maybe we don't. I don't know. But, like, that's not what we're here for. What we're here for is to say, how can we be smarter? How can we talk? How can we learn how to discuss things better? How can we discuss ideas? How can we add to the conversation? And how can we all get together away from, the white supremacists on the right and the Antifa thugs on the left, towards something beautiful that we can all agree on, or at least some broad things that we can all agree on.
Yeah, and I think that's possibly where we get lost at, is in the fine detail of things. It kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about it. When you take a small portion of a population, right, and look at their values and try to spread that across a whole entire civilization, generally you're going to run afoul.
I'm going to disrespect somebody somehow, because I should know who said this. I want to say it's Rosa Parks or somebody. Famous woman in the civil rights movement in the 60s. But she said something about, when somebody makes a circle to exclude me, I'll draw a bigger circle around both of us to include them.
Nice.
And it's just such a, I probably butchered the quote, but it's just so beautiful.
That's a great thought. That's a great thought. And
that's what we're looking to do.
Right.
So if you hear me say something and you're like, wow, that white dude really doesn't get it, draw a bigger circle and include all of us.
Right. Yeah, help us understand. Because
I'm going to say some dumb stuff.
Yeah. I think, probably already said some dumb shit.
I have.
But, so, I guess, this opening interview, I mean, this is what it's
Discussion,
about.
yeah.
Yeah, it's just kind of putting forth what we're trying to do, and to get people to understand that, we want to have these conversations, and we want to know what your end of things are. We want to know what your perspective is. But realize that you have to take responsibility for your actions at the same time. Whether you're left or you're right, or whatever your thing may be, you have to take responsibility for what you do and for what you say. And if you read something on the news and you're automatically pissed off and you're ready to go out and be more aggressive and be violent, I don't stand with you there.
No, we're looking to make the world less chaotic, more peaceful, a more beautiful place where everybody can do their thing,
right,
regardless of who they are.
And I think that's probably the point of some of the people who mentioned earlier on the IDW, the intellectual,
which plenty of them I disagree with, plenty of their ideas.
Sure,
but I love what as a group they're doing to get away from this toxic partisan screaming match and step back and look at ideas in a big picture.
Yeah, and it's I think we could all get to that point. At least maybe not every one of us, but generally, if the population get to that point where it's like, okay, being mad isn't getting us anywhere, and we've known this. I mean, as adults, we've known this since we were teenagers. You go through that aggressive stage in your life where it's just like you try to be aggressive and come at every problem you have aggressively, and you begin to realize that does not work. Whether you're going around beating
Where I felt
people
when I
up,
was a 15-year-old boy.
yeah, or you're screaming at people like.
And if you're 35, 40, and you're still in this mode, bro.
Yeah, come on, man.
Go get some help.
Yeah.
And I don't mean that judgmentally. I really don't.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying that, like
seriously, get some help. We got a number for you. We're done.
Yeah.
We hook you right up.
Trust me, I've spent time there, and I'm glad for it.
Yeah, but and that's kind of what I'm saying is, it almost seems like things are being approached in this immature way, where it's not where it's more about, you can stand out and scream and yell at your neighbor all day, right? But he's still gonna mow his grass at how he wants to mow his grass. So, but if you go out and say, hey man, how about we match up and come to an agreement, you know what I mean? And that's kind of how I think people should approach these conversations. Is saying, you can't go out and say, you can't think that, you can't say that, because it offends me. Well, damn right it offends you. It's like we have a right to free speech, just like you have a right to be offended.
Have you ever heard Christopher Hitchens' statement about offense?
No. Well, probably. I've read it.
Yeah. I don't know if it was. I think it was in an interview, but one time somebody said, "I'm offended." He looks back at him and he goes, "Okay, still waiting for you to have an argument against what I said."
Great point.
Great point. And only Christopher could make it that succinctly.
Yeah, probably one of the greatest orators we've ever had. So, you got anything else you want to talk about, or?
Not necessarily. Did you want to say any of the other subjects? Like, I don't know that we're dedicated completely just to politics, obviously.
No.
And free speech is definitely the thing that, like, I think we bonded over.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is that we both have a similar view of speech and the concerns that we have. But what other thing that we're interested in talking about, like big picture wise? Anything else that comes to mind?
Well, yeah. I mean, there's almost every subject we've covered so far. I mean, that we didn't really get into detail with. Feminism, homosexual rights, the whole LGBTQ community, religion. Is obviously a big.
I love mythology, even though I'm an agnostic. So don't look at us and go, oh man, those guys are so hard on religion. Well, yeah, we are, but I also really see the value in some spirituality. So there's nuance to these discussions that can be had.
So, as a precursor to our next episode, where possibly me and you can sit down and talk. Okay, is. We went and seen Richard Dawkins at Brett Weinstein.
Yeah, that was wonderful.
It was a wonderful.
I've been looking to see Richard Dawkins since I was young.
Yeah, and I got him to sign my books, and I mean, it was a really great time. Yeah, and so, But, usually when I leave those talks, especially with people like Richard Dawkins and Sam Harris and Christopher Hitchens, some of the four horsemen, basically. Right. A lot of times I find myself leaving on their side. And that night I didn't. Okay. I didn't leave on that side, but I've been scrutinizing the lineage selection idea for quite some time.
So Brett Weinstein was talking about a version of extended phenotype based on lineage selection, and
how religion
Dawkins
plays a role
kind of
in that.
disagreed, and I think I agree with Brett, but I don't know that I
Okay,
know
so
what
the
I'm
next
saying,
time I'm
but
going to
anyway,
make
yeah.
a counter argument about that because
Interesting.
yeah, and I'm not going to get into it now because we've already talked about so much. I don't want to bore people too much. So just so we understand, this is just kind of an introduction. I wanted to bring Calvin on to introduce him to you guys and kind of give you an insight of what some of the things we're going to be talking about. And we probably didn't make a lot of sense sometimes tonight, but I mean, that happens in long form discussion.
Every genius needs an idiot sidekick so they look smarter, so that's my job. Idiot sidekick.
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that for 1 second. But, I guess it's kind of a warm-up session for us as well for you. And we want to hear your thoughts on some of these subjects we kind of covered tonight a little bit.
And if you know somebody that we're hoping to do some interviews, right? With smart people, just interesting people, whether they're politicians or scientists or
don't recommend us
citizens or whatever.
radicalists from any ideas because we'll recognize them quickly. And
although I would almost find it fascinating to talk to somebody like from Antifa or something. I would actually love to sometime
Pangburn philosophy.
like actually talk to somebody that would go on the record as supporting some of that.
Did you see the interview that Pangburn philosophy did with the Nazis?
No. Do you want to open that can right now?
No, I don't. I just urge you to go look at it. It's pretty interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. What got me looking at it was there was a talk about sometimes some ideas don't deserve a platform, right? So when I seen this posted, I was kind of like, well, is this one of those ideas that don't need platform?
That's a hard one. That's a really hard one.
I'll leave you to watch the video, and I urge you guys to go watch the video too. Pangburn Philosophy is a wonderful company. I think if I can still man this position correctly, what they've done is
Pangburn, you're saying?
Yeah. What they've done is essentially they've taken the intellectual conversation that was being deplatformed in universities on several occasions and put them in theaters to where those conversations can still happen. So
on a more neutral ground.
Yeah, on a more neutral ground.
Which is nice because you're not offending.
Big shout out to Pangburn Philosophy for that. We really appreciate
Travis,
it.
you're awesome.
Yeah.
I don't always agree with everything you say, but you're awesome.
Right. Okay, so anything else you want to say before we get out of here tonight?
Thanks, people.
Yeah, thanks. Make sure you hit that subscribe button or donate to our Patreon account. The more you donate or the more you click, the more friends you get to click, the more you support us, and the more we can build this thing up and make
constructive
really
criticism. Absolutely.
Yeah, constructive criticism.
Recommend people we should talk to.
Yeah, recommend people we should talk to. Constructive criticism. All these things are welcome. But again, hit that subscribe button.
And we're all for free speech, but there's some subjects we're probably just not going to touch because we're inadequate to or don't know how to deal with it correctly. So just because we don't touch a subject doesn't mean that we're being hypocritical about a free speech stance. Just some things are just outside of my interests or abilities or.
But I almost guarantee I can find somebody that can speak on the subject. I almost guarantee.
Yeah.
So if those subjects come up that we don't know much about, we have to bring people on who do.
Absolutely.
So again, hit that subscribe button. This is Out of the Armchair podcast, and we hope you guys enjoyed this conversation. Have a great night.
Peace out.
See ya.